With that, welcome to the Mind Management Mentors podcast tonight. Today's all about leadership for 50 more years. I can't wait to tell that. That's just the perfect segue. Look, I'm a big believer if it's in the mind, it can be managed. And today's guest is onto the podcast. He's going to be talking 50 years of leadership, some great stories. And the reason, and I'm genuinely saying this, I know I kind of set you up for this before, Paul, but this is more a homage to, I don't understand. Maybe you don't know the impact you have on people sometimes because we don't, but you were one of the biggest influences and impacts on my leadership and my management when I was really struggling, when I was an activities manager. So when I saw that you retired, I'm like, let's get him on a podcast because we need to be able to talk about you, Paul. And that's what today's.
That's so scary to me, Cuddy, that you look at it that way. I'm thinking, oh no, what have I done to this poor man here?
No, you were the one that genuinely was the anchor, the steady, the calm when I was really struggling as a new activities manager. And we can talk about that later. But Paul, introduce yourself. Tell everybody who you are, what you do, and what you are doing now.
Well, first of all, thanks for the invitation, Cuddy. I'm Paul. I was a cruise director with Royal Caribbean for over 30 years. You and I worked together. We were co-workers. You were the activities manager. And if I remember, I think it was the Navigator. Was it the Navigator?
Correct.
If I'm not correct. Yeah, sometimes they all run together, but you were the activities manager. I was a cruise director. What a great time we had.
We did.
We were in Europe a lot, if I'm not mistaken, and just had an absolutely wonderful time. We did a great run. And people on land can learn so much from the cruise industry. I mean, if you think about it, the largest ships in the world have over 7,000 people, over 2,000 crew, close to 10,000 people in a big metal boat in the middle of the ocean. What could possibly go wrong? And so leadership is so important because so many things happen. And I'm not sure how much your audience knows about you and what you've been through or the cruise industry, but everything that happens on land happens on a ship, everything. And so I've written a couple of books about it and have been able to tell some stories. And I'm sure you notice anytime you tell somebody you work on a cruise ship, what's their first reaction? It's, oh, you must have some crazy stories to tell. That's the first reaction. And we do. We have some crazy stories to tell.
Absolutely. So we're going to say it's over 50 years of leadership at sea, but tell everybody the first ship you signed on and the year.
You just love this, don't you?
I do.
So it's almost 50 years ago. It was, I worked on board my first ship December 4th, 1976.
The year before I was born.
You were born when? I'm sorry, Cuddy. When were you born?
77. I was born in 77.
Thanks. Okay, this podcast is over. Thank you so much. But once it gets into your bloodstream, people either love working on a ship or they quit within 2 weeks because there's lots of rules and regulations, which we understand. But if you can work within those parameters, working on board a cruise ship is one of the most incredible jobs anywhere. You get paid to travel. I haven't been all over the world, but I've been, quite a few different countries that I never would have gone to unless I got this job. And it's just a fascinating industry. You meet crew members. The best part for me was meeting crew members from over 100 different countries. I mean, I must have worked with well over 10,000 crew members. And to hear their stories puts everything in perspective. Obviously, I'm from the US, you're from the UK, but to hear people from India or Pakistan or China tell their stories, it makes us so much more appreciative of what we have, but don't realize how well we have it. So if this is your homage to me, which I appreciate, my homage is to the 10,000 or so crew members that I've had the absolute pleasure to work with and learn from.
It's got to be more than 10,000 crew members. There's
Yeah, it's got to be.
to be fair, there's 2,000 on the Allure. It's a
I ne-
7,000 ship with 2,000, and you've done all the big ships. So out of your last 5 ships, you did 10,000. You've been on cruise ships. Let's do the maths. You've been on cruise ships for nearly 50 years. You're talking over 1 million.
million passengers, maybe. With
Wow.
passengers. I never really worked the real gigantic ships. I never really wanted to. Big
Okay.
ships. I've always said big ships have big headaches. So I always preferred the smaller ships because it doesn't take you half an hour to get from one end to the other end. But I worked the Voyager class ships. I worked Spectrum class ships. So the most number of crew members on any ship I had was about 1,500
Yeah.
crew members. But
Yeah.
yes, it adds up over time, and it's the people. It's
Nearly
seriously, it's
50
just
years,
the
Paul.
people.
Nearly 50 years. Just saying. It adds up over nearly 50 years. So it's
Really.
quite. Look at that face. He's like, you rat bastard. Ah, do you know what, Paul? And here's my homage, definitely a homage to you. When I was genuinely struggling, I got promoted really quickly at Royal Caribbean, like super quick. But I know I have that personality and that charisma to go and ask people, what do I need to move into that next part? I only ever joined Royal Caribbean to become a cruise director. That was it. That was the goal. So I remember, we'll throw Rob McNally's name out there. After 3 days of working on board, I'd not even finished my new hire training. I went up to Rob McNally, who was my activities manager. I went, what do I need to do to get your job? He was like, just get through your new hire training first.
Do one contract, yeah.
And I did get promoted in my first contract.
That's
I
great.
did. It was the back end of my yes, I did. Yes. First contract as crew staff and I got promoted to activities manager. But I wasn't it was a learning curve. It was an absolute curveball. So when I was bolshy and overconfident, and that's how I'd gotten the job, and everyone liked me for that. Then they found out I couldn't manage for shit. I did not know how to manage people, manage a program, and I was then, you go down that spiral of like, oh my god, this is completely unsafe waters, uncharted territories. And you, Paul, was so helpful, so calm, non-judgmental, and helpful. And I was going through, that's when I started reading management books. So I thought, right, I'm struggling. There'll be an answer in the book. Let me find a book. And it was The 1 Minute Manager.
I know that book.
It was because I heard you talk to one of the stage and production managers and you literally quoted something out of the book. And I'm like, I just read that last night. And I've got to tell everyone the quote is like, I'm not upset. I'm just disappointed. And I think it was Shannon. I think her name was Shannon. Shannon, one of the stage and production managers, and her face just was like, "Oh, I've let him down." And it was straight out the book of emotional intelligence. Of don't ever say you're angry or pissed off or they've messed up. Just say I'm disappointed. And Paul, I was like, I need to learn everything from Paul, and that's what I did. And that's when you got people to come out from Miami saying, "Look, we really like Cuddy, but he needs to learn the program and things like that. Can we get someone to come out?" And Chapman, Dave Chapman came out and trained me for 2 weeks.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
yes.
We're going back.
Yeah, we are. 2 weeks came out, trained me, and he genuinely helped me how to become an activities manager. And then eventually I did get cruise director. So I have to say thank you to you, Paul. That's genuinely the big thank you because I know what part you played in that. So I'm tipping my hat.
Well, I appreciate that. And one of the best things for me, and there's some leaders and managers that don't like this, but one of the best things for me is to see people move up the corporate ladder who want to move up the corporate ladder. Some cruise directors or some leaders are threatened by that.
Yeah.
I was never threatened by that because I was always confident in my abilities. But when you see somebody below you who's really trying to work their way up, I got so much pride from seeing you and other people move up to where you wanted to be because you were willing to put in the work. Now, if there's some people who want to move up the ladder and don't want to put in the work, then it's tough to support that. But if you find people and if leaders find people, they shouldn't be threatened by them who want
Yeah.
to move up the corporate ladder. And that was always one of the big things for me was to see people get promoted who wanted to really work their way up the corporate ladder.
So, and Paul, for you, that's a very confident leader. There's no insecurity there in any way whatsoever, and there's not a lot of you're absolutely right. And I've worked with leaders, and I will not name them in any way whatsoever, that used to swipe your legs. They would not put you forward. And I always come from a place of when you shine, you'll cast shadow. And the people that cast shade onto, they just resentment, and they don't want to help other people shine. And I'm a big believer in that, Paul. And you were a shining example of that, of like, no, bring people up, bring people up. And that showed, because you genuinely did have that warmth to bring. And there's so many things that I could, little snippets of what Paul Rutter taught me. If you want somebody to listen, whisper.
Oh,
If you
yes.
want someone
Don't
to
shout.
listen, talk quietly. Not start shouting. And I learned that from Love and Marriage, because you would sometimes go, and your tone came down, and everyone, the whole audience went quiet, and then you started talking normally. So I learned that there's so many little snippets of tidbits that I still to this day have learned from you, Paul Rutter, as a magnificent leader. And I
Well,
say thank you.
this is turning into a love fest. Hopefully, your audience isn't going crazy here, but you reminded me of that. But yes, to get somebody's attention, don't speak louder. If you're in a crowded room, speak a lot softer, and then everybody else does the work for you by telling everybody else to be quiet so that they can hear you. And I would always do that. You're right. I
Yeah.
forgot all about that. But yes, I would speak less and speak quieter in order to get their attention. And I have to bring up, Cuddy, one other thing that you mentioned about being calm. I
Mm.
used to work for cruise directors because you can learn from everybody. You can learn good things from people and you can learn bad things from people.
Yes.
I would work with cruise directors. You never knew what mood they were in. One day they were really high, one day they were really low. And you'd walk into the office and knock on their door and sort of peer your head in to see what sort of mood they were in. And I hated that. And I always told myself, no matter what I'm going through, I'm going to try and stay at an even keel so that my team is not afraid to come to me and ask simple questions. And I learned that just by working for people who drove me crazy with their mood fluctuations that had nothing to do with us.
No, do you know what? You're absolutely right. And when I was going through, and I'd learned from great cruise directors or great leaders and great captains, and I think one of the leadership things that I always took away was you can never not learn from the bad experiences as much as the good experiences. So always take a positive away from that cruise director or that person above you that you had a horrible time with. And I had those circumstances. I used to walk away and go, I now know how not to be as a leader.
And that's your learning.
And it's a positive. It's such a, you take this horrible experience and go, I now know what not to do as a leader, and I'll be successful because of that horrible time that I've had. Perfect. Paul, you said even keel, no pun intended.
Oh, I didn't even realize.
What top three things? Let's keep a nice top three things for 50 years of leadership. What would be your top three? Do this if you want to be a phenomenal leader.
Number one, without any doubt,
Yeah,
listen.
listen.
Listen, listen, listen. As you know, you have two ears and one mouth, so you should be listening twice as much as you're talking. You can learn so much from people. If you don't think you know everything, then you open yourself up to learning from people. And I will tell you, on a ship, I've gotten more great ideas from crew staff or people who've just joined the ship because they see things with a whole new set of eyes that you're so used to seeing that maybe you didn't even recognize something. And so they come to you with ideas that you need to be open to listening to anybody and everybody. Now, sometimes you say, no, we tried that before, that doesn't work or whatever, but you need to be willing to listen. So listening, very important. I'd say that's my top priority. To be a good leader, you need to listen. Number two, you need to be open to new ideas, that you don't know everything that there is in this world and that you can learn from everybody. Top three, what's my top third? Teamwork. I don't know if that coincides with number two, but I always much preferred working as a team than working just by myself. And I don't know if in past podcasts you discussed personality types. You have four main different types of personalities. You don't want all the same type of personality on your team. You
Too
need
many
all.
eyes, you won't get anything done.
Exactly. If you do the disc personality, you don't want all drivers on your team. You all drive each other crazy.
Yeah.
So you need all different types of people on your team in order to make it successful.
Yeah. Variety is the spice of life when it comes to personalities, isn't it?
And you need all of them. Even if you don't think so, you never know when that personality that you don't might not get along with, but they have some good ideas, and you have to be willing to listen to that.
I still to this day struggle with the ones that just take their time, slow thinkers, contemplators. I still struggle with the C type because I'm all the way up I'm unicorns and ideas, fun. Let's make a decision. Let's just make a decision. Not impulsive, I'm decisive. And then it's like, well, maybe we should just wait and do this for 3 days. I just get lost and I'm like, no, decision. Let's just do a decision. But no, disc is so important for people. It genuinely is. It does help you see the other side of what people are going through and things like that. So no, it's
And here's a great example. Sorry to cut you off.
yeah,
You're a strong I. I'm exactly the opposite of you. I'm a very strong SC.
yeah,
So I'm the one that looks at the details.
yeah,
I'm the one that wants to see. I'm the one that wants to see every possibility and then make a decision. And that's why we work together well, because you're the influencer. I'm the steady and conscientious one. We're at the exact opposite ends of the spectrum, and that's why it works so well.
yeah. It really is. It really is. And I have to honestly, I have to say, it was a pleasure working with you. Genuinely, it was, Paul, and that's why I'm so excited about this podcast. So, with you being the kind of person that brings people up, and you can name them if you are, you're more than welcome to name them. Is there anyone that you brought up that went above you, and then went above you again, and then went above you again? Is there anybody at Royal Caribbean that came up below you, and you were able to get them to the heights that they went to in life?
Well, I'll start with one person. Well, you know him as Bobby Brown. I know him as Alan Brown. You know
Yes.
Bobby.
Yeah.
So he's always Alan to me. He and his wife joined the Legend of the Seas in 1995, maybe 95, 96. Very first ship, never worked. I was their very first cruise director. They were a dance couple that they were part of cruise staff, and they were young and they were dance champions. But I could see that he really much wanted to get involved in the work life and move up.
Mm.
I moved over to the Majesty of the Seas. I brought him and asked the office for me to bring him as my activities manager. So it was his first time as activities manager moving up. He then went on to cruise director, very successful. He is now bringing out all the new ships within Royal Caribbean. So, and he and I have talked about mentoring people as well. So he's one that comes to the top because he was brand new when he first joined, never been on a ship before. And now he's, at the top, just bringing out all these new ships, setting up all the programs. And so it was nice to be able to see him shine through the ranks.
Fantastic. Bobby, a great crew. I really enjoyed working with Bobby as well. To be fair, I worked with his wife as well. So they were lots of fun to work with. So we'll talk. Did you and Ken Rush start about the same time then, or did Ken Rush ever work for you?
No, we never worked together. He started, I think, before me. Wasn't he with Emerald Cruise Lines, or when the two companies merged? I think I started working on ships before him, but he started with Royal Caribbean before I did.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, he and I just had a nice lunch down in Miami. It was
Yeah.
nice to see him again. And that's the thing about working with these people. You're just staying now with social media, you stay in touch with everybody. And that's just, I mean, look, you and I talking across the pond here
Yeah.
because of cruise ships. And
Uh,
I want to say one thing you had mentioned earlier about how people don't know when they affect you, that you don't know when you have an effect on a person. I read an article once that I actually use in one of my talks, and the line is, the people who made the most difference in your life never know they made the most difference in your life. So how many teachers have you gone back to? I mean, the fact that you can now come to me and say you made a big difference is so rewarding for me, but that doesn't happen very often,
nope.
because teachers that you had in school, or coaches, or music teachers, sport, whatever, they never know the impact that they've had on you. You never know when somebody's watching you from across the room to see how you act in a different or a certain situation. And so that's why I feel it's so important to be professional all the time, because you never know who's watching you. And I think that's just a great quote. The people who made the most difference in your life never knew that you made the most difference in your life. So for you to be able to tell that to me is very rewarding, and I appreciate that.
Not a problem at all, Paul. Not a problem at all. So, and while we're talking about Royal Caribbean, did Charlie McDonald work for you then, or did Charlie McDonald never work for you as crew staff or Adventure Ocean staff?
Charlie was my Adventure Ocean manager,
So he went on to start running entertainment for Royal Caribbean.
and he became my boss. Yeah, in the office. Yes, on the Sovereign of the Seas, we used to go out every afternoon, play basketball on the back deck with the Sovereign of the Seas, and members of Rain, the great Beatles group Rain, would come out. We'd have great every afternoon around 2:30. It was a great time.
And how was that seeing Charlie McDonald from Adventure Ocean staff to your senior in charge of entertainment at Royal Caribbean?
Yeah, he was our scheduler. He would do all our schedules. And
Yeah.
so our livelihood was up to him. I still see Charlie. I still am in touch with him. He's
Yeah.
left and he's started his own company and his business. So,
Flying.
um, yeah, it's just some incredible people you get to meet and work with.
Absolutely. So for the future moving forward, Paul Rutter speaks. Talk us about, give us two of the most memorable stories of you can't make this ship up.
Well, do you want to start with a naked cruise? I had a
Let's
ship
go
full
for the
of
naked
naked.
cruise. Absolutely go for the naked cruise.
So, um, ship charters are big business. That's where one company or one travel agency charters the entire ship, and then they sell it. And it can be music cruises, sports cruises. A business can do incentive, the top salespeople. But this is a travel agency that charters a ship, and they sell the cabins as clothing optional. Once you go outside of 12-mile limit from land, clothes come off. And I had a ship full of, now, if you remember correctly, growing up, if you were nervous speaking in front of people, you were told, just imagine the audience is naked and that will make you feel more comfortable. Well, what happens if the audience is actually naked? When I went out for the Welcome Aboard show, fully clothed, by the way, and I'm out there and everybody literally totally naked. They sit on towels. I should say, in the clothing optional environment, people sit on fresh towels all the time. They don't sit right on the furniture. So some of your audience is thinking, ooh, gross, disgusting, terrible. But they have their procedures and their protocols, I guess, for that. But it was a ship full of naked people, and I did it once. I will be honest, I never want to do it again. There were some people that I really did not want to see naked that were naked.
Was it your parents?
Sorry.
Was it your parents? Were they on the cruise? I Hi, son. How you doing? We've not seen.
Yeah. Hi, granddad. Hi. Yeah. Yeah. But that was a very interesting, and they have all types of different lifestyle cruises. They have LGBTQ cruises.
Yeah.
I've done music cruises. I've worked with, everybody from Earth, Wind and Fire and the OJs and whatever when we did the Tom Joyner music cruises. And so the Naked Cruise is a very unique sort of cruise. The other cruise is we've done weddings are big business as well. And we've had people plan weddings on board. And you can either have the wedding on board or have it on one of the islands in the Caribbean in a beautiful sunrise beach service. And we've had people plan weddings on board, as you know. Unfortunately, people plan these weddings during hurricane season. And so, of course, what happens? We go and their wedding is going to be in Grand Cayman in the Caribbean. So what happens? Of course, a hurricane is heading towards Grand Cayman as the ship is heading towards Grand Cayman. Well, in the case of a wedding, as you know, in the case of a hurricane, as you know, ships are not going to go anywhere near a hurricane. So they go the other way. Well, this wedding that's supposed to be on Grand Cayman can only be on Grand Cayman because of the paperwork and the government regulations. So now this couple that has their family and friends who are going to see, they don't have a wedding to go to. Well, they're extremely disappointed. Now, us as leaders in the travel industry, how do we make it up to them? They don't care. They can care less about the hurricane. They're not going to blame themselves for booking their wedding during hurricane season. What are we as a company and as managers on board? Because remember, they're with us on board. We can't get away from them. They're disappointed coming up to the front desk saying, oh, okay, what are you going to do? So that's where real leadership comes in, when you are subject to these unique circumstances and you're living with these people. How many land-based businesses live with their customers 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, like we do in the cruise industry? And so we have to keep those people happy. So we send them to special romantic dinners. We give them couples massages. We try to do everything we possibly can. But the fact of the matter is, they booked a wedding on an island in the Caribbean during hurricane season. You need to maybe plan a little bit better going forward. But we try to do as much as we can. In the end, we try to keep them happy, and for the most part, we do.
Yeah.
But these are some of the things we have to deal with and can't get away from when you're in the middle of the ocean with your customers.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing, Paul. So, Paul, you now speak as Paul Rutter speaks. Now, for a lot of people that they may or may not know this, but you actually do. I remember you did the gold adverts. You were part of the gold adverts in Florida.
Well, across the U.S., yes. I did
Across
some
the US.
commercials. Yes, send us your gold.
Commercials.
Your used gold, we'll send you cash.
Yeah. I used to always, because when I was in America and I got to see the adverts, I was like, that's Paul. What's Paul doing on the adverts? So you are multi-talented.
Well, that's debatable, but thank you. You can actually see those commercials on YouTube. If you go to YouTube and put in cash for gold, those commercials come. And they did parodies of them. They were on the TV so often in the United States, they did parodies of those commercials.
Absolutely brilliant. So you now talk about leadership and how to generally make a difference as the role that you are in the leaders as well.
I try to talk about what land-based businesses can learn from us in the cruise industry, because we live with our customers 24 hours a day. There are unique things you have to do. You can't, if somebody says, well, my air conditioning isn't working, you're not going to say, well, it's Saturday. We don't work Saturdays and Sundays. Just stay in your really hot room until Monday. No, we're going to send somebody within 30 minutes and have that fixed, because we live with you. There's no way you're going to keep coming to the front desk to say, fix my problem, unclog my toilet or whatever problems. And so we have procedures, policies, and really principles in place
Mm.
in order to deal with these situations. And that's what land-based businesses can learn from a cruise industry where you actually live with your customers 24 hours a day.
And I think a lot of people, thank you for sharing that. But one thing I remember as a cruise director and a leader within the cruise division and the entertainment division on board is if you'd had a rough day with your staff, most people drive home from work and don't ever have to see their staff until Monday or Tuesday if they've had a bad day on the Friday. Whereas we would be on the same corridors and we'd have to walk past all our staff to get to our cabin. I'd be like, they all hate me today, and I have to walk past that to get back to my cabin. And people don't understand that. There's no walking away from the indifference or the stress. And it is like a sardine can ready to explode because the ship contains all these emotions.
And to add to that, the person you just worked with, let's say 2 crew staff, they might be roommates. So now if they don't get along, they have to go live in the same sort of college-like dorm because they're not very big, bunk beds.
Yeah.
They have to live together. And you then have to pass those people in the hallway, but then you eat together in the same crew mess. You go to the same crew bar at night after work to enjoy and have a drink, and you're worried that you're going to see these people. So it's a very unique dynamic and a very tight line that you have to walk, because one thing I've always said, like, let's say you would go from a crew staff member to an activities manager. So the people that you're on the same level with as a crew staff, you're now their boss. You're the activities manager.
Yeah.
And I've always said, don't try to be their friend.
No.
It's not going to work if you try to be friends. You have to be the boss. They must respect you in your new position. But some people, and then you find out who your true friends are, who want to see you succeed in that new position, as opposed to somebody who says, well, what did he get that job for? I'm more deserving than him. And then they try to undermine you in your new position. You find out quickly who your true friends are when you get moved up to a new position, because they want to see you succeed.
Absolutely. There is so many positives of working on cruise ships, and until people get that opportunity to understand how it is so intimate, so in your face, yes, it's 7,000 people and it's as big as an island, but you are so contained. And you'll know this yourself once you've left Royal Caribbean. You expect a kind of service. When I left my contracts and I got home and I was like, oh, I'll go get service in a restaurant. And the service was atrocious. I'm like, this would not happen at Royal Caribbean. I know what my service standards were as a cruise director, what we were driven to do to excel in it. And then when you come home to the UK or wherever you go back to, and I'm like, oh, I'll go for a drink, and you just get it thrown down at you. There's no conversation, or, oh, pay now and then get your drink later. It was just so surreal. So surreal. It's like the Royal Caribbean genuinely do something right.
It's so funny you mentioned that, because I, in my mind, say that all the time. Like, you don't even get a, oh, hello, how are you? Or the big thing now is when you do get good service, you're surprised by it.
Yeah.
You're taken aback by normal good service that you would come to expect, because that's what we give. We had a rule on board, the 10-foot rule. You at least would smile at people. You didn't have to stop and have a conversation. But anytime you pass somebody in the hallway, you at least acknowledge them. You give them a nod. You say good morning. Now on land, sometimes you don't even get acknowledgement that you exist as a human being. And that's hard to take sometimes for me, because we were taught on board, just acknowledge people. You don't have to stop and have a 10-minute conversation. Just say, hey, good morning, and keep walking, but at least acknowledge them.
And how often do you now? Because it's not long since I left ships. It must be 5-6 years ago. It's 6 years ago since I left the ships. I still walk around with a smile on my face and hey, how you doing? And a lot of people, and I'm in Scotland now. A lot of people are like, what you doing? I'm like, I'm just generally a happy person. I'm just saying hi. I'm raising my eyebrows, or hey, how you doing? And like, we don't do that around here. I'm like, no, I do that because that's the kind of person I am. But do you find yourself off the ship going, hey, how you doing? Hey, how you doing? And people are looking at, What's he doing?
All the time, all the time, because it's just you see somebody, and especially if you make eye contact with them, you just give them a nod. Hey.
Yep.
And for some people who do, I'm just shocked that more people don't do that, because we're just being friendly. We're just being human to each other. It just seems to be a natural response. But yes, and I've been told the same thing as you. Yeah, bring it down a little bit. Oh, hey, yeah, you're too friendly to people. And I'm thinking, I'm just acknowledging them.
What's your? I know what my replies are when they say just come down a little. No, no, you need to step up to my level.
There you go.
The view appears much better.
I want to tell you a funny story. So I'm home. I'm off a ship.
Yeah,
I'm in. It's like a big hardware store called Lowe's. I don't know if you're familiar with Lowe's or Home Depot. They're very big
we
warehouse
get B&Q.
hardware stores.
Yeah.
So I was in my local Lowe's, and there was a lady in there with a salesperson, and I walked by, and she said, "Oh, I know you. You look familiar." And I've gotten that in the past. And so my typical response is, have you ever been on a cruise? Have you been on a cruise recently? And that jogs their memory. And so I said that to the lady, and she said, "Oh, you're Paul. You were the cruise director on my last cruise." And the cruise that she was on with me was a transatlantic cruise. So we went from England over to Florida. We have 7 days at sea or
Yeah.
whatever. You've done those cruises.
I love him.
We used to have the walk across the Atlantic. It was a charity event. We'd
Yeah.
have the treadmills going. And so I had made a deal with the audience that if we raise $15,000 for Make-A-Wish Foundation, that I would kiss a dead fish on stage. If we made $17,500, I would get my legs waxed in the promenade. And if we made $20,000, I would do the farewell show in drag.
Nice.
So they hit all of those things. So I had my legs waxed, but the lady in Lowe's who saw me and said, "Oh, you're Paul, the cruise director. I saw you get your legs waxed." Now, this is in a big store, and the salesperson is looking at me like I'm the craziest person in the world, and had to explain this to him about what she was talking about. But yes, we get recognized where we go. And because I gave up my body for charity, I had to get my legs waxed. And that was the thing that she remembered when she saw me months later in a store.
Amazing.
Yeah, it is. We influence people. We make impacts on people that we never know.
I still get recognized for being on Royal Caribbean, and they're like, "Cuddy, were you on the Independence or were you on this? Are you Cuddy by any chance?" I'm like, "Yeah, no, that's exactly what I do now." And I've got a little meditation group as well that we still meet from the ships online every Sunday 9:30, and there's about 7 or 8 of us. 2 of them are traveling the world. And they're all people that I met from ships that came and did monkey mind relaxation with me on the ships, and I started doing it on the Zoom, and they all still come and do meditation with me after.
I did that with you a few times. I
Yeah,
did your relaxation. Yeah, that was great.
still do it.
Love meditation. Love it.
Still do it. Absolutely. Well, look, Paul, I know you're a busy man in Margaritaville.
Now that I'm retired.
Absolutely. But I just as we wrap up, I was struggling as a new manager and moving through those leadership roles. And you were one of the absolute stand-up gentlemen that never once, you know full well I am full on personality and character, and you never once swiped my legs. And I remember the cruise directors that swiped my legs as a "you're not ready yet, shut up, swipe, keep me down, this is my show." And you were never that person, Paul. And look who I'm doing a podcast with now, saying thank you. And that's leadership.
Well, and I thank you so much. It's because I had those same leaders above me as I was growing up and learned from them, good and bad. but that's how you learn. And so you hopefully pass that along and pay it forward. And that's how the world works.
Absolutely. That's what we do. Leadership after 50 years is everything that Paul Rutter is about. You're a true gentleman, a big believer, I'm sure, and if it's in the mind, it can be managed. And you helped me manage my mind when I genuinely needed somebody to step up. And thank you very much for that, Paul. Paul, is there anything else you want to share?
They can find me at paulrutterspeaks.com. And I would love for them to buy a book. It's called You Can't Make This Ship Up. And it's all the stories, some of the stories we talked about, some different stories in there, and again, what people can learn. But Cuddy, what a pleasure to see you again and talk to you again. And just I'll talk about the cruise industry with anybody and everybody. I just a wonderful industry. And one final story. The reason I got my job is because I took my dog for a walk. Only reason. I was in Connecticut. Excuse me. I just graduated college, took my dog for a walk, ran into my high school principal who knew somebody who knew somebody. And if I hadn't taken my dog for a walk that day at that time, I wouldn't have run into the principal. So the only reason I'm sitting with you right now is because I took my dog for a walk. And that was 50 years ago, and the rest is history.
Right. Unbelievable.
Yeah, it really is. I'm just very fortunate.
So many stories that you can share and help people with. And Paul Rutter, speaks.com is definitely how we go and find you. So thank you so much. If it's in the mind, it can be managed. And thank you very much to your 50 years and joining this podcast. You can't make this ship up. As always, big love from Cuddy. I'll see you in the next podcast.